I'm going to wander around today because I'm already 6'6", and if I'm stood up here, I've been looking back over a couple of the videos and it looks a bit intimidating. It's like somebody stuck to the ceiling and the camera's down on the floor peering up their nostrils. So I'm going to come down a little so that I can speak to you as a human being. We've had another one of those weeks in church where it's all the more important to concentrate on issues like joy, and I came across the line, anointed with the oil of gladness, and I thought about what my Christian life had done for me, where it had led me. I thought about happiness, where my joy had been and where my core of happiness was. Did I have a core of happiness? I preached a little on this last week. I'm going to preach a little more on it this week. Now, that picture up there says to me, you know, we talk about paradise, we talk about happiness, we talk about heaven, we talk about heaven on earth. Now that's actually the view from the bottom of my mother's garden. They're coming over here next week, and that photograph was taken from the bottom of their garden, and it looks like an oil painting. And I have this image of being there 2 years ago, and standing on a beautiful summer's day at the bottom of their garden, looking out over this cornfield, and in the far distance there's a medieval church. And I saw a family making their way through the cornfield towards a medieval church, and the bells of the church were ringing out. And I wept like a baby for a good 10 minutes. You can laugh at me and point and snigger if you want. But in an ordinary thing, and that was an ordinary thing, it was a couple and their children making their way to church, I saw a glimpse of what I considered to be paradise. And what makes you happy? What turns you on, as we say in England? Is it ice cream? Food? Sex? No. Company? Friendship? Love? Beauty? God? From the sublime to the ridiculous, or from the ridiculous to the sublime? Where do we start off? Do we start off with the little things that make us happy, and do we just hope that they will grow until they fill our being? Or do we start off with the gigantic thing which has the potential of keeping us happy for our lives and beyond to all eternity, and then we can go back and enjoy the little things? Now my sister is a wonderful woman. I love her dearly. But she went through a difficult time in her life leading from her divorce, where she was looking around everywhere. Left, right, for partners, for a house, for a job, anything that would make her happy, that would fill the hole that she had in her lives. And I spent 15 years in the wilderness, from my teenage years until I came back to the church, where I had that hole, that gaping thing in the middle of my life, which I could not fill, which I desperately tried to fill with every conceivable thing. Now, as a current running through that time in the wilderness, there were certain things that did still give me happiness, that still give me joy. And those things, in those things, I saw a shadow of the source of all that joy. What I was basically doing was licking, I should say, at the waters that flowed down a mountaintop, when on the top of the mountaintop was the spring, the wellspring, from where it all flowed. Gardens, wild landscapes, the sun, jazz, music, all these things made me happy and continue to make me happy. And in them I saw glimpses, especially in gardens. I saw a glimpse of the God which I was seeking for and didn't even understand I was seeking for that God. Now, when I was a teenager of 12, 13 years old, I came across a group of people who were in a pretty fundamentalist evangelical church background. Free Pentecostal, I suppose you describe them. And I started attending church there regularly. And I'll be honest with you, I was happier than I'd ever known. I knew I'd found something which just glowed within me. I was deliriously happy. But then I hit a stone wall. And the stone wall was, at about that sort of time, 13, 14 years old, you're not only looking to discover your spiritual life, you're also discovering your sexuality. And as I found a word to put to what I was, gay, I also started to hear what this church was saying about people like me. Now, the joy I had felt being in the presence of God amongst these people who I trusted absolutely, because anybody who was carrying the message that brought me that joy must, in some way, reflect the God, surely. And I realized that I was putting them all on pedestals and expecting them to behave like God, when really they were fallible human beings. And more than just being fallible human beings, they weren't wicked, they were ignorant. There was no crime in being ignorant. They did not understand what I was telling them. They did not understand what I was. They thought I had made some sort of choice. Presumably they thought I'd woken up one morning and thought, do you know, I'm just going to like guys today. Now, I presume none of them had done that. Maybe they did, in which case they were bisexual. I presume that none of them had made a choice about their sexuality. But still, in order to be able to judge it in accordance with the particular style of Christianity that they had received in their lives, they decided to cling to the idea that my sexuality was a choice, when no one else they knew sexuality had been a choice. So I came up against a brick wall. And this source of joy turned into the most appalling feeling of betrayal. I cannot stress enough how betrayed I felt. I felt bereaved. And I never recovered from it until I came back to God at the age of 26, 27, when I was finally baptized and confirmed and then went forward to ordination. I felt a little more of that old betrayal when I realized that the Church of England did not affirm me and love me and value me as a Christian minister because of my sexuality. The old betrayal came back again. And then all of a sudden I walked into Metropolitan Community Church in Los Angeles and I was home. It's a terrible old cliche. Terrible old cliche. Oh, I came home. But I did come home. I did come home after years and years of unhappiness, after years and years of feeling misery. After feeling rejection, I came home, and what I found again was a reconnect with that source of joy. What I found was a gradual reanointing with the oil of gladness, if you like. Now, my earliest memories of happiness concern my mother. Most people's probably do. But I remember being a little toddler, and I was in a stroller, so I must have been very young. And I was being pushed through the woodland near where we lived when I was a little boy. And I remember knowing that there was not a care in the world and that my mother was behind me and she was talking to me constantly. And she was pointing things out to me along the way. And I knew that when I got home I was going to get a cuddle and then I was going to be put to bed and I was going to rest. Well, nothing's changed, really. That made me happy when I was 2 years old. And in a weird sort of way, that's what God is doing with me now. I'm being taken through life, led through life, and I am being shown things. I'm having things pointed out to me. Metaphorically, I occasionally throw up or fill my diaper, just like I did then. And then I know I'm going home to the everlasting arms and rest. Now, what made me blissfully happy when I was a little boy makes me blissfully happy now at 30 years old. Sometimes we come full circle. And it's true that the relationship we have with our parents contains within itself sometimes a very true allegory of the relationship we have with God, only just much, much more so. Much more intimate. Much more intimate. I said a few weeks ago that the most intimate thing that a human being can experience, I believe this firmly, is the bond that grows between a mother and a newborn child. The same sort of intimacy, only many, many more times more intimate, is to be found in our relationship with God. Now, all this is easier said than done. The devil is in the detail. I can know deep, deep within me. If you like, in my soul, there's a difference between your soul and your character. Character comes from the Greek charaxos, to be inscribed upon. Your character is inscribed upon you during life by a whole bunch of experiences. Some of them may be very negative, and you can end up with a character that is difficult. For other people, certainly. But praise God, God sees straight through that charaxos and sees through to the human soul beneath. Now, sometimes the most difficult people are the most tender.